case of Mary Bell has been a topic of interest among criminal psychologists since her heinous crimes that took place in the 1960s. This is the horrific story of an 11-year-old kid who not only committed murders, but was also well aware of her actions. What drives such a young girl to murder? It's no surprise that the answer lies in Mary's abusive upbringing. Her experiences of violence didn't begin with those murders. Pain and death were her companions almost from the moment of her birth. Generally, we guess that children would think about play and entertainment all the time, but wouldn't indulge in serious or heinous acts by nature. But some derelict children do think about nasty things, such as killing others. Among such pitiful children was this young girl. On May 26, 1957, Mary Bell was born to Betty, a 16-year-old prostitute who reportedly told doctors to take the thing away from me when she saw her daughter. Her father is still unknown. Mary's mother, Betty, married Billy Bell, a robber with a criminal history, a few months after her daughter was born, and Mary was raised by him. Mary Bell was a victim of ongoing abuse in the home, both in the form of neglect and physical violence. In her work as a prostitute, Betty Bell specialized in playing the role of a dominatrix, as well as other BDSM roles. Betty would perform violent acts with and for her clients, and Mary almost certainly bore witness to this behavior. Imagine a child seeing a scene like that and the impression that it left on such a young, malleable mind. Not only that, Mary was also prostituted out by her mother when she was just 4 or 5 years old. How crazy is that? Mary's young life had already been marked by loss. She had seen her 5-year-old friend run over and killed by a bus. Mary began behaving violently, vandalizing and beating her classmates in Newcastle upon Tyne, which was a violent and high-crime town. Since a very young age, she was known to be intelligent, manipulative, aggressive, and had a habit of lying. According to her family, when in kindergarten she tried to squeeze a classmate's throat by wrapping her hands around her. Betty's sister saw Betty try to give Mary away to a woman who had been unsuccessfally trying to adopt. The sister quickly recovered Mary herself. She wasn't anything like the other kids on the block. Mary was strangely accident-prone. She once fell from a window and accidentally overdosed on sleeping pills on another occasion. We can all agree on one thing. Given all that had happened to her, Mary Bell did not have a normal childhood. So it's not a surprise that she had become a strange child, withdrawn and manipulative, always hovering on the edge of violence by the age of 10. But that was nothing compared to what she was about to do next. For weeks before her first murder, Mary Bell had been acting strangely. On May 11, 1968, Mary had been playing with a 3-year-old boy when he was badly injured in a fall from the top of an air raid shelter. His parents thought it was an accident, but it wasn't. The following day, 3 mothers came forward to tell police that Mary had attempted to choke their younger daughters. A brief police interview and lecture resulted, but no charges were filed. No one could have fathomed that a child was capable of going further than that. However, on May 25th, the day before she turned 11, Mary Bell strangled 4-year-old Martin Brown to death in an abandoned house in Scotswood, England. She had lured him by offering him candies, then took him to an old building nearby where Mary choked him to death. Mary left the scene and returned with a friend, Norma Bell, to find they'd been beaten there by 2 local boys who had been playing in the house and stumbled on the body. Police were mystified. Besides a little blood and saliva on the victim's face, there were no obvious signs of violence. There was, however, an empty bottle of painkillers on the floor near the body. In the absence of better information, they assumed Martin Brown had swallowed the pills. His death was ruled an accident. This was the second time the authorities let Mary walk free when they shouldn't have. If you're still not sure how sick in the head she was, here's a little story that'll intrigue you. Mary Bell showed up on the grieving family's doorstep in the days after Martin's death and asked to see him. The mother gently explained to her that Martin was dead, but Mary said she already knew that. She wanted to see his body in the coffin. Yes, you heard that right. Martin's mother slammed the door in her face. Mary and her friend Norma broke into a nursery school and vandalized it with notes. The childish scribbled notes were filled with profanity, but more unsettling was the notes about murder, including one that stated, "We did murder Martin Brown." Another one said, "I murder so that I may come back." Police assumed the notes were a morbid prank and the kids were let off the hook again. Mary and Norma planned an attack again on July 31st, 1968, targeting Brian Howe, a 3-year-old boy. They moved much farther this time, committing heinous acts only expected from experienced psychopathic serial killers. The kids etched an M on the child's chest with scissors, cut his hair and genitals, and dumped his body in a field. The body was discovered the following day, and the police investigated the possibility of a pedophiliac. As a result, the case was linked to Martin's killing, and the possibility of a serial killer emerged. Around 1,200 youngsters from the region were interrogated, and these 2 girls in particular sparked suspicion. Their answers did not persuade the detectives, and Mary confessed to both murders under duress during the interview. Unable to speak to Mary directly, the police interviewed a young boy who witnessed the murder of Brian Howe. The boy explained that Mary had convinced the toddler he had a sore throat, in which she could help make it better. She began by massaging his throat and tightening her grip until he suffocated. This was enough evidence to detain Mary Bell. During the trial, both the girls blamed each other for the murders, but the detectives noticed that they shared warmth for each other even after implicating each other during the trial. That's why the court called for their psychological checkup. The psychologist found that Mary's mind was not sound and showed symptoms of psychopathy. During the trial, the court found that the real culprit is Mary Bell. So on December 17, 1968, the court acquitted Norma, and Mary was convicted of murders in line with the English law of diminished responsibility. The judge says that she is a very grave risk to other children. Thus, she was given a life sentence. Apparently, the powers that be were impressed with her treatment and rehabilitation and felt like it was appropriate to let Mary Bell out in 1980. Mary was released on license, which meant she was technically still serving her sentence, but was able to do so while living in the community under strict probation. Additionally, Mary Beth was given a new identity to provide her with a chance at a new life and protect her from tabloid attention. Even still, she was forced to move several times to escape hounding by tabloids, newspapers, and the general public, which somehow always found ways of tracking her down. Mary gave birth to a daughter in 1984. There was great concern about whether or not Mary should be allowed to keep her child. After all, she had murdered 2 children. In the end, Mary was allowed to keep and raise her daughter. There was also some controversy about Bell's participation in a book about her life by Saran Gita titled Cries Unheard: Why Children Kill, The Story of Mary Bell, because she was paid to tell her story. The story of Mary Bell has remained etched in the common imaginations as the case of the youngest killer in the United Kingdom, capable of atrocities and terrible acts at just 11 years of age, acts which have broken the lives of young and innocent victims. Those quick with child-level math will have worked out that this made Mary 23 at the time of her release, meaning she had her whole life still ahead of her. If that makes you angry, considering she herself took 2 young lives away, I'd encourage you to think about the whole context. This was an incredibly sick and miserable young girl who needed medical help more than anything. That still doesn't allow her to take the lives of 2 young kids. What do you think? Were the authorities wrong in letting Mary Bell walk free amongst us? Or should she have spent the rest of her life behind bars? Let us know in the comments. And if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like it and share with your friends. Make sure to subscribe to this channel for your regular dose of whodunits. And we'll see you in the next one. Until then, stay safe, stay warm, and don't get any crazy ideas.